Brazil, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva signed a decree overruling privatization projects of Jair Bolsonaro's government. In Argentina, President Alberto Fernandez announced an impeachment motion against the President of the Supreme Court for violations in the performance of his duties. And also in Afghanistan, the self-proclaimed Islamic State claimed responsibility for last Sunday's suicide bomb attack in front of the military airport in the country's capital that killed at least 10 people. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. This Monday, in Brazil, a series of measures taken by the President, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, came into effect. Among them, the overturning of more than a dozen decrees signed during Jair Bolsonaro's government. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva suspended the policy of easing arms procurement and halted the privatization process of the oil company Petrobras, the logistics company Correios, and the Brazilian communications company. An international donation fund for the productive development of Amazonian communities, which had been abandoned by the Bolsonaro government, was also recovered. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva assumed the presidency of Brazil this January the 1st before the Brazilian Congress and accompanied by thousands of citizens. The details in the following report by André Vieira and Sebastián Soto.
A child, a black man, a woman, a worker, a teacher, an artisan, a cook, a disabled person, and a little dog, symbol of the Lula Free Vigil. Diversity went up the ramp of the Planalto Palace with the new president and First Lady Janja da Silva. It was the Brazilian people who passed the presidential band to Lula da Silva after his predecessor left the country. An unprecedented event for a historic moment. Speaking to the crowd, the president was touched when he talked about poverty, a priority challenge to be overcome.
Familias completas durmiendo en las calles, enfrentando lluvia, frío y miedo.
They should be in schools, living the childhood they are entitled to. Unemployed workers, displaying banners at the traffic lights with the phrase that we should all be ashamed by. Please help me.
Pancartas con una frase que nos avergüenza a todos. Por favor, ayúdenme.
On the first morning of 2023, a part of all Brazil was represented among the thousands that crowded Brasilia. You couldn't see where the line of the people who came to see the third mandate with their leader began or ended. Professor Jacqueline dos Santos traveled one day by car with her entire family to be part of the change that begins with a new year.
Of respect for citizenship, of respect for education. That is why we're here, and that is why education transforms, and no one fought for education as Lula did.
The new government will be composed of 37 ministries. Culture, sports, racial equality, agrarian development will return. For the first time in 5 centuries, indigenous people will be represented on the front line of the Brazilian state.
It is a restart of ensuring our rights, and that Lula can provide spaces, which he is already doing with ministries and with rights, mainly with the demarcation of indigenous land throughout our Brazil.
The government that takes office finds a country with 33 million hungry, 10 million unemployed, and 62.5 million people in poverty, in the midst of a present social crisis resulting from a past of anti-democratic attacks, the hope of a future to be built.
It is a 6-year struggle since the coup, and in my house, we remember because I came to Lula's first inauguration.
As his first actions, President Lula da Silva maintained the payment of financial aid to the poorest and revoked the decrees that made arms purchases more flexible. Brazil needs food, not bullets.
I will govern for 215 million Brazilians, and not just for the ones who voted for me. I will govern for all of you, looking to our common bright future and not through the rearview mirror of a divisive and intolerant past.
Governing for the most impoverished, preserving the environment, recovering international relations, 120 countries were represented at the inauguration. The new government took office promising unity and reconstruction for the next 4 years.
André Vieira e Sebastián Soto, TeleSUR, Brasil.
In Brazil, the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly held a meeting with authorities of the Kingdom of the United Arab Emirates regarding the strategic cooperation between both nations. The meeting between the head of the Venezuelan parliament, Jorge Rodriguez, and the Minister for State for International Cooperation of the United Arab Emirates, Reem bint Ibrahim al-Hashimi, took place this Monday in Brasilia, where they discussed issues of mutual interest with respect to cooperation in energy matters through the Organization of Oil Exporting Countries, OPEP, and non-OPEP, an organization in which both nations work to maintain the balance in the production of crude oil. In this sense, authorities discussed the promotion of oil, gas, and petrochemical activity in both countries, in addition to promoting investment in various strategic sectors. In El Salvador, more than 200 people died in traffic accidents in 2022. According to Civil Protection Chief Luis Amaya, from November 17th to December 31st, 2022, 203 people died in the 2,301 traffic accidents reported, which also caused injuries to 1,319 people. The Ministry of Public Works said that compared to 2021, there has been a 7.1% drop in traffic accidents, which means 1,333 fewer accidents. And Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, paid his respects at Pelé's funeral on Tuesday as one of the first actions as the country's new head of state. The Brazilian star died on December 29th at the age of 82 after a long battle with cancer, and was laid to rest on Monday and Tuesday at the stadium of the lifelong club Santos, where thousands of people arrived to bid him a final farewell. Lula, who took office on Sunday in a ceremony that began with a minute's silence for Pelé, paused at the coffin of the widely considered greatest soccer player of all time and embraced his widow and other family members. The 24-hour wake will end this morning before a procession carries Pelé coffin through the streets of Santos to a private burial. Let's take a short break now, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news, updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez announced that he will initiate impeachment proceedings against the head of the Supreme Court, Horacio Rosati, for violations in the fulfillment of his duties. In a message to the nation, the president denounced that judicial officials and the opposition politicians maintain a link through dialogues in which they anticipate decisions and recommend grounds to be used when deciding cases with unquestionable institutional importance. In view of this, Fernandez also said that he will request an investigation on the behavior of the Supreme Court remaining members and summoned the governors of the provinces to support the investigative process against Rosati. He also announced that he will order his Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Martin Soria, to investigate alleged acts of corruption between officials of the administration of the city of Buenos Aires and businesspersons contractors. Now we move on to other topics. In the Donbass, at least 6 civilians, including patients and medical staff, were killed on Sunday after Ukrainian armed forces shelled a hospital in the town of Pervomorsk in the Lugansk People's Republic. The mayor of the city of Pervomorsk, Sergei Kulayin, said that the death toll could rise once the debris was removed. The number of casualties has been confirmed by the deputy medical director of the facility, Tatiana Kolvaleva. Press reports indicate that at the time of the bombing, physicians were performing a surgical operation and that the patient had to be moved to a safe place. The hospital was left in ruins and its surgical units inoperative. At least 3 civilians, including a 3-month-old baby, were wounded. In France, general practitioners in the private sector announced on Monday the extension of the strike for another week that paralyzes part of the healthcare system. Through a statement, the union pointed out that they regret the lack of interest shown by the executive in attacking and correcting the situation in view of the fragility of the health system. They also announced the extension of the strike that seeks to demand an increase in the base rate of consultations from 25 to 50 euros and better working conditions. Additionally, they called for a day of protests on January the 5th and demanded better conditions to speed up medical consultations. On Monday, the European Parliament's President, Roberta Metsola, launched an urgent procedure to suspend the immunity of 2 of the body's members. On her Twitter account, Metsola indicated that this is following a request from the Belgian judicial authorities. According to the statement of the Parliament, the procedure might be carried out during a plenary session on January 16th. While the announcement did not give the names of the affected deputies, experts indicate they are Italian Andrea Cozzolino and Belgian Mark Tarbella, both linked to the corruption investigation that led to the arrest of Eva Kaili. Now we move on to other topics. Residents in California's vast Central Valley region brace for another round of powerful storms this week after flooding from a New Year's Eve deluge killed 1 person and forced the evacuation of people in low-lying areas, including more than 1,000 inmates at a county jail. On Sunday, rising floodwaters caused local officials to order the evacuation of the Point Pleasant community near the Consumnes River in South Sacramento. That included 1,075 inmates plus staff at the Rio Consumnes Correctional Center. Inmates were taken to nearby jails with no timetable for their return. Another storm is forecasted to hit the area this weekend, with forecasters anticipating up to 2 inches of rain in the valley and snow of up to 2 feet in the mountains. In the Philippines, the death toll has risen to 51 due to floods and landslides affecting the country since last weekend. The National Council for Risk and Disaster Reduction reported that so far 19 people are missing, 16 injured, and more than 51,000 have been evacuated due to persistently heavy rains. They also detailed that some 10,000 people still remain in evacuation centers. The most affected area is the region of northern Mindanao. The agency pointed out that in terms of economic damages, there have been losses of around $20.2 million in infrastructure and $4.4 million in agriculture. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Afghanistan, the self-proclaimed Islamic State terrorist group claimed responsibility for the attack occurred last Sunday in front of the military airport in its capital, Kabul, which left 10 dead and several wounded. In this context, the terrorist group claims that the death toll is more than 20. However, the Taliban government questioned the figure, so it will issue a report on the total number of dead after the completion of the removal work. The attack was the third high-profile incident in the city during the last month of the past year, 2022. In Palestine, Israeli troops shot and killed 2 people on Monday during an incursion in the occupied West Bank area of Jenin. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported that the Israeli army killed 2 young men between the ages of 22 and 25 after they were shot multiple times. According to local authorities, the killings occurred as local citizens clashed with occupation forces who came to demolish 2 houses in the village of Kafr Dan in the Jenin region. In addition, the Israeli repression left at least 3 injured, one of them in critical condition, who is being treated by health personnel in a local health center. On the other hand, the Palestinian Prisoners Study Center reported that in the year 2022, about 7,000 Palestinians, including 164 women and 865 minors, were arrested by the Israeli regime's military forces. According to the statement, the Zionist occupiers carried out daily arrests, where most of them were subjected to torture and many of them remain prisoners of Israeli troops. The report further detailed that among the detained minors, some are forced to pay a total amount of $140,000 in fines and compensation for their freedom. In Syria, 2023 began with several terrorist attacks and a new Israeli aggression. Such acts of violence seek to undermine the wishes of the Syrian people for a new year full of peace, security, and stability.
At dawn on Monday, January 2nd, the Israeli occupying army attacked Damascus International Airport. The airport was temporarily taken out of service. 2 Syrian officers were killed and 2 others were wounded as a result of this first Zionist aggression against Syria in 2023.
Currently, there are signs of a possible rapprochement between Russia, Iran, Syria, and also Turkey, which worries the Zionist enemy because this rapprochement could help Syria to regain its strength and its prominent position in the region. And this goes against Israel's colonialist objectives, hence the latest attacks aimed at hindering any efforts of ending the war in Syria.
A day earlier, on January 1st, Daesh terrorists harbored in the illegal U.S. military base in the Syrian region of Al-Tanf, bordering Jordan and Iraq, killed 6 Syrian Arab army personnel and injured 2 others in an attack to several areas in the municipality of Palmyra in central Syria, and at least 10 employees in the Al-Taim oil field in the eastern province of Deir ez-Zor were killed by terrorist attacks to their bosses.
perdieron la vida por acción terrorista contra sus autobuses.
It is clear that the United States and its terrorist proxies, as well as its regional allies, are sparing no efforts in preventing the resolution of the conflict in Syria to prolong the suffering of Syrians and the shedding of Syrian blood in order to serve their interests. Thus, such terrorist attacks aimed at frustrating the Syrian people who hoped for better days in the new year.
Syrians say that although the new Israeli aggression and the recent terrorist attacks stain with blood the beginning of the new year, they failed to frustrate them and make them lose their firm conviction and faith that 2023 could be the year of overcoming the bitterness of the war and the anguish of the Western economic blockade.
Hisham Wannous, TeleSUR, Damasco, Syria.
In South Africa, the death toll from a gasoline truck explosion has risen to 34. According to the emergency services officials, the explosion occurred at the Tambo Memorial Hospital in East Johannesburg, and 10 of the 34 dead were health workers. Health Minister Joe Vala informed that the emergency unit at the hospital's X-ray department were severely affected. Authorities also reported that multiple houses and vehicles were damaged in the blast. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.